Hello, class. Today we're going to talk a little bit about Ohm's law. Now, Ohm's law defines the relationship between voltage, current, and resistance. And we've already given you the equation in your notes at the beginning of this unit that current is going to equal voltage over resistance. We've seen that in building the circuits, that when um, you had the battery hooked up, that's your voltage, it would send a current through the series circuit, and then as you added resistance, added light bulbs, that current got less. You could see that as the bulbs dimmed. But we're going to actually work on solving these equations today using this triangle. Now, this triangle is going to be helpful for us of just remembering what goes where. And so we're going to look at what these letters mean, and then how do we use this triangle to help us solve equations. Um, in our triangle, you see we have V, I, and R. So what do those stand for? Well, voltage is measured in volts and symbolized by the letter V. And so the top of our triangle has a V in it. And so that's going to be our volts. Well, current is measured in amps and it's symbolized by the letter I. That gets a little confusing because you would think it would be an A, but it's not. It's the letter I. And so make sure you mark that, circle that, highlight that, remember that when you see I in this triangle, it's current. And then resistance is measured in ohms, is symbolized by the letter R. And so in our triangle, you see we have the V on top, and the I and the R is on the bottom. That's going to be important for us on remembering where those go when you're doing your problems. And so I'm going to show you how to use the triangle here in a moment. But before we do that, I want you to go ahead and copy down the information in this chart. The quantities that we're working with, current, voltage, and resistance, the symbol for each one so you can remember what goes where in the triangle, the unit of measurement, and then the unit abbreviation. It's going to be important for us as we do these problems that when you come up with your final solution, that you include the unit of abbreviation. If not, the number doesn't really mean much by itself because we don't know if you're talking about temperature, a measurement of length. If you're talking about a volume, we don't know what that would be unless you put the unit in there. And so when we're solving these problems today and in the future, I want you to think of GPS. It's a good way to think of this triangle. A GPS gets you where you want to go. It takes you to your final destination. And so when you're trying to solve these problems, I want you to look at these three terms. What are my givens? That's the G. So what am I given in the equation? What is the problem that I'm trying to solve? And then what's my solution? And so let's look at some examples of how we would use GPS to find this information out. If you're given I and R and you want to find V, so that's your problem, is finding your voltage. To use your triangle and you just leave V out, you eliminate it from the triangle and you see what's left. Well, here we have I and R. Those are our givens, current and resistance. Our problem is to find V. So we have the G and the P of our GPS. So what would our solution be? Well, if they're beside each other in the bottom of our triangle, we're always going to multiply them. So our solution would be V, or volts, equals I times R, current times resistance. So as we do some practice problems here in a moment, that's going to be important. V equals I times R. Now, if you're given voltage and current, V and I, and you need to find R, so your problem is what is R, then you're going to just leave R out of the triangle and then find it. So V is a given, I is a given. You need to find R. Because V and I are above each other in the triangle, it's going to be V over I. Whatever's on top is always going to be divided by what's on the bottom. And so your solution is R equals V over I. If you're given V and R, those are your givens, and your problem is to find I, just leave I out of the triangle and see what's left. Well, I equals V over R. The V's at the top, R's at the bottom. And so you're going to divide volts divided by resistance. So whatever problem you're doing, if you're given two of the three values, you're going to be able to know how to use Ohm's law to determine the third value. And that triangle helps you remember what goes where. And so in a circuit, remember our battery is our voltage, our lamp or whatever it may be is our resistance, whatever's using the electricity. And then our flow is going to be figured out from dividing our volts by our resistance. That's where that triangle is going to be really handy to remember what to do. You can plug those things in and you know exactly what to do. So let's do a couple of practice problems. In a circuit, a 0.5 amp is flowing through a bulb. So that's our current. It's amps, so we know it's our current. Look up at the chart. A is the abbreviation for the unit amps, which is current. And so that's going to go in I. You have a triangle there on your paper. So I want you to go ahead where the I is, where current is, write 0.5. Then the voltage across the bulb is 4.0. So we're told right there, that's our voltage. It's going to go where the V is. So on that triangle, write the number 4. And we're going to find out the bulb's resistance. So we're given the voltage, 4, and the amps, 0.5. Now we got to figure out what is the resistance. Well, it's volts over current, amps. And so we're going to divide those. V divided by I. Our problem is finding R. Our solution is V divided by I. And so you could use a calculator for this. Go ahead and 4 divided by 0.5. What you should have gotten is 8. And so volts divided by current in this case gives us 8. But 8 what? Go back up to the chart and look, what's the unit of measurement for resistance? What's ohms? It's that omega symbol. And so your final answer for this, the resistance is 8 ohms. All right, so let's look at one more here. A light bulb with a 0.5 volt battery. So if we look at our chart, volts is voltage. It's going to be V. And so 1.5 is going to go right here in the top of our triangle, 1.5. It has a resistance of 10 ohms. All right, so now resistance is R. So we can put 10 right down here in the bottom of our triangle. So you light a bulb, has a voltage of 0.5. And so take your calculator, plug in 0.5 because that's on top. And it's going to be divided by R because R is under voltage. So divided by R in order to find current. So 0.5 divided by 10. We have 0.15. So our solution is 0.15. 0.15 what? We go back up to our chart. What is the abbreviation for the unit for current? Our unit is amps. It's abbreviated with an A. And so we're going to have 0.15 A as our solution.